Welcome to your iconic image. If you want to take control of your image and be a power player in your space, then this is the show for you. Here we will arm you with tools and information to help you grow your brand on purpose. I'm your host, Marlana Semenza, photographer and visual strategist. Now let's dive into today's episode. Natasha Bowles is a woman that makes the impossible possible. She is an entrepreneur, writer, speaker, executive assistant, consultant, and the powerhouse behind Natasha Bowles Professional Services. No wonder she is often referred to as Wonder Woman. Welcome, Natasha.
Thank you.
So you are like neck deep in all things business, and you make the lives of some very busy and very successful entrepreneurs sane.
I do.
But recently, you and I had a conversation, and you had mentioned in there that just because you have a brand doesn't mean you have a business. So first, tell us what you mean by that.
So many people, and I love what you do, and people that create brands, so many people have an idea, then they spend all of this money getting a brand created. They get an email, they get, a logo, they do all of this stuff. And then they're like, now what? And just because you have a brand doesn't mean you have a business, because having a business is actually more than just having a name and having, connections and having an email where people can reach you. You have to figure out, how are those people going to reach me? What am I going to do once they reach me? Who's going to help them out? So standard operating procedures are so important. And it's a step that so many people skip. It blows my mind how many people skip that step. And also the step of getting some additional help, so that, because most companies that fell in the first 3 years fell because they don't have any standard operating procedures and they don't have back office help and they have no idea what they're doing.
So at the very least, what should we have in place?
So at the very least, you need to have, you need to have your plan of action, like your business plan. So that needs to go. And actually that needs to happen before your branding even happens. You need to have a business plan. So I suggest either there are tons of resources online to get a business plan together if you don't know how, or you can hire a business attorney. They can help you get a business, or there are lots of business coaches. And that's actually something my team even offers for people. We've come into situations and been like, okay, what are you guys doing here? And we've actually helped them do a step-by-step business plan. And we do that for the consulting fee. So it's a one-time fee. So definitely putting that in your budget of getting, if you don't know how to set up a business plan, getting one set up.
Okay. So then, let's say we have a basic business plan. At what point, how many things can we tackle on our own and how many things should we be handing off?
So I always recommend, and actually I didn't come up with this. I have to totally give the credit to Michael Hyatt because it's his idea, but I love him. And one of the things I do when I start with someone is send them his book. So what you should do is, and I think the best way to do this personally is just take a week of being you and have a notebook with you everywhere you go. Everything you do, even the tiny small stuff, jot it down. And then you can go, and Michael Hyatt has the little diagram that he makes where you put the stuff that you do, that you love, the stuff that you have to do that you don't love, and the stuff that you don't love that somebody else could be doing. And as soon as you figure out and the stuff you don't know how to do, that's the important thing, because the stuff you don't know how to do. So as soon as you figure out those things, like what you're doing all day, every day, how you're spending your time, how you're what you're doing to make your business work or even not work, because sometimes, that's how you figure out this is what's not working for us, then that's the time to hand off stuff. And often it's at the very beginning, especially if you're looking at stuff that you don't know how to do. Like if you don't know how to do accounting, hire it out. Even if you just hire it out to I don't really like them, but I have had clients in the past. Well, it's not that I don't like them. It's that the 1-800 accounting, it's a good service. If you just,
I didn't even know there was such a thing.
Right. And it's not that I don't like them, and I apologize to them for saying it. The thing about them is they really are helpful, but it also is another level of, you really have to know what to send them and stuff like that. So they're not always the best if you don't know exactly what you're doing or what you need to be sending them. But there are a lot of accountants that do. I think a lot of people don't understand when they start a business and they get their brand and stuff together, is that any and everything that you could possibly need, and COVID has opened this up a little bit more for people to be more accepting to this, but any and every kind of support that you need is available out there. And it's available, you don't have to hire a full-time accountant. You don't have to hire a full-time assistant. You don't have to hire a full-time office manager. None of those have to be full-time positions. Most executives the sweet spot for most high powered executives is between 40 and 60 hours of support a month. So when you're actually only using the hours to do work and you're not filling a seat for the rest of the day, because everything we do is remote and virtual. So when you're doing that, most executives only need to pay for between 40 and 60 hours a month. And most small business owners can get started for 20 hours or less a month. And that covers like everything they could possibly need. So a lot of people are like, well, I can't really afford help, because they're thinking of the traditional way of getting help, of hiring somebody, paying taxes, all of that stuff. And honestly, if you can contract it out, you can get any kind of help. You can even get like a for hire CFO. You can get for hire board members. So there's a lot of men that do, or a lot of men and women that do that are for hire board members, and they will sit on your board, and they give each company like maybe 10 or 11 hours a month. And so
it's interesting that you bring that up, because I was thinking, as you were saying it originally, well, what about the people that are just starting off and think, well, I can't afford to do that? But you're saying that at any point you should be able to afford to do that.
At any point you should be able to afford to do that. And because you can make an investment of $500 a month and get some help and support from someone that knows what they're really doing and knows what needs to happen and knows how to answer those questions for you, can actually get a lot done in 10 hours a month. Like I said, the sweet spot for most busy executives is between 40 and 60 hours. So if these guys that are running 8-figure companies, 9-figure companies can do it in 40 to 60 hours, a small business can get it done in 10. And that's a $500 investment.
So then my next question is, because you said if you find somebody that knows what they're doing, and I know that you know what you're doing, but what if you're not available for somebody? How do they find somebody that knows what they're doing?
So that's the big thing, because there are lots of companies out there that do what I do. So I'm not the only one. And there are a lot of VAs that and I actually support. I know that some people don't. I know that some people will get mad about the people in the Philippines and the people in the other countries that do the admin for very, very cheap. I'm never mad at those people. I have several that I have contracted with in the past to do some tasks for me. A lot of them are smart, capable, amazing. They don't always know US law or US, business procedures.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I would say, please don't skimp on hiring. If you could hire someone at my level, I'm going to use me for an example, and just interview people, ask them, do you know how to do this? This is my business. Tell me how you would do this. Tell me how you would, So I have a lot of people that I actually consult for, that I show them the hows and the whys and the whats, and I even manage there. And then they are able to use more hours of support at that level, of abusing someone overseas, but they also have someone that's supporting those people, making sure that everything is done right. So there are multiple ways you can find people. Facebook, I'm not on Facebook anymore, but Facebook is actually a great, there's a lot of VA groups. You can join a VA group, start a discussion. But I do recommend that when you're hiring someone or you're looking for someone to help you, you ask them, send them a task to do. You may even have to pay for it. If it's a real task that you need done, actually, I do recommend giving them $10 an hour for doing it. Don't just expect free work. There's a lot of negativity around that. But for $10 an hour to find out if they actually do know what they're doing is totally worth it, So I recommend sending them a task and saying, hey, okay, this is what I have to do next week. I've got, well, for example, you're a photographer, you say, I have these clients, COVID shut down the place we were going to book. We booked originally. I need to find an alternate place that is COVID safe, that has, what we need. These are the recommendations. I need you to find me a list of 5 places that would, be within driving distance of here. And that would be a task you would give to someone, and a good example of whether or not they can actually do the work.
That's great advice. When we are having an initial conversation, are there any red flags that if they say this or they do that, you would think, well, you better move along to somebody else?
And actually the most red flag that people, if someone says they can do everything, that is a huge red flag because no one can do everything. You want an assistant that's niche down, but if you do need multiple support, then pick a company like mine that has a team. I can't do everything. I can do a lot. I have a very eclectic because I've worked with so many different clients and I've learned over the years, but I didn't start out that way. I learned it from working with each one of them. But I have I don't like to do social media. I know how, but I'm not passionate about it. So I'm not giving you my best effort on it. But I have someone on my team that can do it.
Mm.
Tech stuff. I can do basic tech. Not passionate about it. Don't like it. So, but I do have someone on my team that can do it. So, but if one person tells you they can do everything, then that's actually a red flag because I think that, I don't know if you've ever heard, my grandfather used to be the one of the things he used to say all the time is he is a jack of all trades, a master of none.
Mm-hmm.
So, so someone that tells you that they can do everything is probably not a master at anything.
And I think that's with any business, because I know even in photography, when I've seen people's websites or things like that, and they will list, oh, I photograph babies and weddings and interiors and portraits and, landscapes, and then you're not doing any of them well.
Right.
So once we find someone that do we have to make a long-term commitment? Can it be a shorter term commitment?
You don't. And actually, anyone that wants you to sign a long-term contract that's difficult to get out of, I would take that as a red flag because you shouldn't. Because honestly, first of all, I believe it takes at least 3 months to get into a flow with someone. So I usually recommend, when someone starts with me, I usually recommend let's spend 3 months together and see what happens. And unless it's just like we're just completely not clicking from day one, then I let them out of it early. But I do recommend they stay for 3 months. And then after the 3-month point, the way that my contract goes is either one of us can end it with 45 days written notice. So that way they're not committed for years at a time, because things can happen. Like COVID happened, and a lot of my clients had to scale back, and I actually had let a couple of people pause, but I didn't really lose anyone. I had a couple of people that we changed up what they were doing. And then I had another person that I was like, okay, well, what you're able to do now during this time, you don't need someone at our level. I'm going to introduce you to someone else. I'm going to get you started with them. Let's get you through all of this. And then if you want to circle back with me later, I'm available and I'm here, because it wasn't to their best interest to stay working with me. So if someone tells you you're locked into a contract for like a year or more, don't do that. Don't do that. So you need to be able to make a commitment that you're able to get out of. And that doesn't mean to ghost anybody or to let anybody ghost you. That just means that you need to have that. It needs to be built. You need to have the proper contracts and stuff in place to protect yourself on both sides. But more so, you need to be building that relationship that's meaningful so that you want to stay with that person. You're not required to.
So if we can't find a company like yours that is multifaceted, and we have all of these different things that we need done, is it, because part of my brain kicks into, oh my gosh, what a nightmare to be dealing with all these different vendors for different things? Or is that really not as bad as my brain is currently making it out to be?
Okay, so it really depends. It really depends on whether or not, like, I have a couple of clients that do use multi people. And like I said, like, you can build up. So 160 hours is a full-time job. And let's say you need a full-time unicorn, but there's no such thing. There really isn't. If people tell you they are, then they're lying to you. So let's say you need a full-time unicorn. So we're going to Frankenstein together a full-time unicorn. You can have an accountant that works 40 hours a month. You can have an online business manager that works 40 hours a month. You can have a social media manager that works 10 hours a month, and you don't even have to go up to 160. I'm just saying that, you can have one full-time employee pieced together by multiple, however many you need and whatever hours you need with it.
So then with your company, what services do you take care of for your clients?
So we pretty much do take care of everything. I personally have pieced together the unicorn myself just from knowing what clients need. And one of the things that I offer that makes us sort of worth what people pay us for is I manage all of that. So like, you don't have to worry about managing the different vendors. I'm managing it. So someone is doing your social media. Someone is doing all of your back office stuff. Someone's doing your travel agent stuff. Someone's doing your calendar stuff. Someone is doing your, And even with us, like we've helped so many people start their businesses. So like we can even be there from the beginning of, this is how you set up your business, because we know how. We've done it for multiple people, or we've even stepped into successful businesses and kind of worked backwards from what they did to figure out how they got to that point. Because I want to know that. I want to know how my client got to being a 7-figure business, so I can share that with my other clients. And not that I'm sharing client, but anything that I learn, I feel like that's my, I get to take that with me to the next client. And, so that's one of the things that I offer, because we work with so many different people. And I do manage that, because like I said, there are people that don't like to manage people. So for someone like that doesn't like to manage or deal with people, having a team like mine is the best. But if you don't mind managing people and you're okay with giving out tasks, and I totally recommend using something like Trello or Asana, or, there's 17 hats. There's so many out there. My favorite's Trello. I think it's just the easiest one to use, the way that the boards and stuff work. But I do recommend using some kind of project management software if you're going to be managing multiple people, so that you can kind of see and you don't lose who's doing what. And that just needs to be part of your standard operating procedure. So I kind of got off into a whole different thing from what I originally wanted to talk to you about. So I guess what I'm saying is, when you get an idea, you need a business plan. You need to get your brand together, because you need to know who and what you are. You can't set up anything if you don't know who and what you are. So I think you are definitely the next very important step. And then from there, you need to set up procedures and stuff. If you don't know how, invest in someone that does, because it's going to end up costing you way less money later on if you invest in someone that knows how. And then once you set up all those standard operating procedures and everything, or have someone set them up for you, if you don't know how to do them, or you don't feel like you have the time personally to do them, then you need to start building your team right away. And all of these things are so important. And the businesses that survive past the 3-year mark are the ones that are doing these things.
What if we have already built this personal brand? Because I know a business brand is a little different than a personal brand. Same principles and whatnot, but so let's say we have this personal brand and we have developed it. Can we work backwards a little bit to make it into a business?
You can, yes, you can definitely work backwards to make a personal brand. And actually, I started out as a personal brand. My story is I became the accidental entrepreneur. So definitely you can work backwards from having a personal brand to be a business brand. And there's never a bad time to start that. But don't wait till you're going downhill or whatever. Once you realize, hey, this is bigger than a hobby, I would like for it to be a business. That's when you need to start making it into a business. And it is a little bit more difficult than starting from scratch. I mean, it's sort of the difference between building a house and remodeling a house. So it is a little bit more difficult to do a remodel, just because you're dealing with it, you're usually living in it, and you're still trying to operate from day to day in it. So that is actually the time that I would recommend getting help, more so even than starting a business, is kind of redefining your business into a business, is getting the people that can help you really take your brand and turn it into a business.
Which is so important. I have people that I work with too, that they've kind of stumbled into their personal brand, and it's kind of like that runaway horse that they're trying to put the saddle on, and they're trying to put the reins on and things like that so they can steer it, but the horse is already moving.
Right.
So I know it's easier. I can still go in there and do what I do with that, but it's a little more difficult for the business end of it.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, anytime a remodel is a lot harder to deal with than a total build.
Okay. So if somebody needs to start today and they're starting from scratch, what would be your advice? What's the one thing that they can take away from this conversation that they need to start to do today?
So, okay.
If they're starting from.
So my advice, if they're starting today, the one thing they really, really need to take away is decide what you want. Decide where you want to be. What do you want this to be? And I mean, really not hey, I'm going to piece this together and this is going to be this for a couple of years. And it's going to be this for a couple of years. In game, what do you really want? And then from there, if you say, I want a 7-figure business, then okay, let's look at different 7-figure businesses and what they're doing. and how we can scale that down to you being started. And let's start. Another thing my grandfather always used to say is begin as you mean to finish. So always begin the way that you want to finish. So, you can scale it down to match where you're at right now. But if you want a 7-figure business someday, you need to treat your business like a 7-figure business from day one.
Love that. And is it the same advice if the horse is already moving?
It is the same advice if the horse is already moving, because even if the horse is running, you got to know where he's going. And we might have to adjust it. We might have to lasso that sucker and say, hey, dude, we're going this way now.
Love it. All right, Natasha, that was all great advice. So with that, I just have 4 final questions for you.
Okay.
And the first one is, what's the best piece of advice you were ever given?
The best piece of advice I was ever given was by my grandmother. And she always used to say, no matter what is happening in your life, remember this too shall pass. So I know people are like, was it not a business thing or something like that? But everything I do in life, every struggle I have, everything that's like, oh, am I going to make it through this? I always remember this too shall pass.
Yeah. Similar to that, I read recently something that I thought was so beautiful, and it said, you have survived 100% of your bad days.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes we forget that.
Sometimes we forget that.
So then share with us one thing on your bucket list.
So as you know, I have lupus. So I've been actually running my bucket list for years because, it's kind of, I'm iffy on things. So like my health. But one thing that I have not done yet that I really, really, really want to do is I would like to take some time and go live in Ireland for a while. And I that's part of why I built the business that I did. And COVID kind of put a little bit of a whoops on it, because I still have the flexibility of working from home and working remote and building a company that can be run fully remotely. But travel's a little weird right now, but I still have that dream. I want to go and spend like a year in Ireland.
Nice. And when the toy companies finally get around to making an action figure of you, what 2 accessories will it come with?
I think she needs a crown. Because it is never wrong to remember that you're fabulous. And I think she needs an organizer, because there is so much happening in my life. If I don't write it down, I don't remember it.
Love that. And Natasha, if anybody is interested in perhaps working with you and your company, how do people find you?
Right now, the best way to find me, because we are revamping, we're rebranding. So we're kind of doing the horse in the middle of the So one of the best ways to find me right now is on LinkedIn. So I am Natasha being WW on LinkedIn.
Perfect. And I will make sure that's in the show notes. Thank you so very, very much for being here. And thank you.
Thank you for having me. I always enjoy our conversations.
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for joining us. Once again, I'm Marlana Semenza, photographer and visual strategist. Please comment, like, or share this episode. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. For more information on how I can help you create your iconic image, visit marlanasemenza.com.